So let's take a look at version 5 of the sim, and this is how it looks like. Stop here. And I cached out up until frame 100, and this is the result. And it's working. I'm really happy with the progress, but there's a couple of issues that I'd like to fix. First of all is the cuts that we're getting here. And then it looks like the glue constraint is very, very weak. You can see the bricks and everything is basically getting destroyed right away. So why is this happening? Why we're getting this click or this fracturing? The reason for that is actually it's correct what we're getting. There is some issues with the geometry that is enforcing this, but this is actually physically correct, because what's happening is this wall is getting stretched and deformed, and all the stress is put on these areas. And the reason the sim chose these areas because there is inactive pieces and active geometry, and at that edge bullet basically is going to use that to, or the sim is going to put all the stress in that area, and that's why we're getting it more on this wall and less at the top, because there is more stress on this area. So what I'd like to do to fix this is, well, the best way to fix this is to try and avoid having inactive and active pieces side by side. And what I mean by that is, if you have, let's say, like this wall, and you have all these guys are inactive and then these guys are active, it's better to have less active pieces. Like, you make the active amount less, and then you add a glue constraint that holds everything together. Okay, and that's gonna make the structure and the sim behave much better. So that will be the first thing I'm going to fix, and then we're going to change the amount of the impact force for the glue. I want it to hold up a lot longer and definitely get more, have it be stronger here, and then we'll continue from there. So let's enforce the edges. So we have these guys, everything is active, and I made some changes, so let's put it back the way it was. Cool. So this is the active area, and what I'm going to copy these guys first, and I'm going to reduce the amount of inactive pieces, so I'm going to scale it back. Something like that, and then same for this guy. Okay, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the connect adjacent SOP, and I'm actually going to increase the max connection. I want to get more constraint in the system. This is going to increase the amount of connection between the pieces, which will help make it stronger, and it will improve the overall look of the sim. It's not going to make a huge difference, but it's going to make it look better because we have more constraints now. And I'm going to group. Now this is the constraint. This is our system that we've built using the pin and glue. Okay, and I'm gonna take this this guy, and I'm gonna select those sides. So here I'm gonna change it to primitives because we want to capture the entire primitive, and I'm gonna make it just a tiny bit bigger. And same here. Change it to primitives, something like that, and then I'm going to delete everything except what's in those groups. So inactive, delete non-selected, and we have that. And we're going to introduce a new constraint network, a glue constraint network with all of this. I'm going to set it to never break basically, and this is going to make the sim more stable, a lot more stable when it comes to connectivity between active and inactive. So let's copy the settings, and I'm going to call this a glue never. And I'm gonna dive inside. Actually, let's go up. I'm gonna plug this with these guys, and I'm gonna disconnect this. I don't need it. Okay. And let's give these guys a color so we don't get this. Okay, so that's the glue never. And let's create a constraint. Glue never -1. This guy we're never going to break. And it's going to hold the edges. And then let's do one more thing. We're going to increase the force here. I'm going to increase it 10 times because I think it's very, very weak. So we're going to set it to 20. And then the bullet solver, the number of steps is very low. And I should probably be using something around 15 for these tests, for the live test. But it's a bit slow. I don't want to keep it very interactive. For this test, I'm going to increase it to 20. I'm going to make sure I have randomized constraints on. This thing just helps with the stability of the constraints because it randomizes the order at which the constraints are being resolved, and this helps fix some of the jittering and exploding constraints and things like that. So it just improves the stability of the system. And then let's cache a few frames here live. Let's keep that at 5, that's fine. Okay, so it looks like there's an issue with the active and inactive geometry. I don't see anything moving here, so let's take a look. So this guy, okay, I'm gonna set that to 1. I still believe that the sim is actually very fast because we're simming all of this in almost live. So getting anything in less than 1 hour is still very, very fast for Bullet. Okay, so I'm gonna pause and I'll let this cache up until the foot of Kong hit the wall, and we'll get some deformation there, and then I'll resume as soon as this is done. We'll continue. Thanks. Okay, so cached up until frame 72, and everything seems to be working as expected now. So the top is definitely much stronger in terms of the glue constraints, and we don't have any more cracks on the side. And I'm getting all this nice bending. I think it's a bit too much, but I'll leave it to you guys to decide. I'm getting all the features that we want, the cracks, the clustering. I think this is too much. The pin constraint maybe up is a bit high. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is I want to change the constraints on this geometry. I don't want the same value of the pin, breaking angle, and then the glue as well. So I'm gonna go up here in the constraint system. I'm gonna add few things, and maybe let's do it. Yeah, let's do it on here. I'm gonna merge these two guys first. And this is what we're using. This guy is just it's never going to break, so we don't need anything there. I'm going to create a point VOP, and I'm also going to let's do it here. Okay, let's create a point VOP on this guy, and I'm going to create a ramp that starts 1 here and ends at 0 or some values there. So let's take the height position, vector to float. It's outside the screen. Oh, come on. Why is this? Vector to float. And I want the height, so Y. And we're gonna fit range this guy. And the height is going to be 70. Okay, and it starts 1 and 0. So I want it to be white at the bottom and black at the top. And we're gonna put a ramp so we can control this. And it's a float ramp. And then I'm going to export whatever value we're going to create as a mult. I'm gonna call it mult for a multiplier. And let's go up. So here everything is 1, and then as it gets higher and higher, the value is going to change. Now I don't want it to be linear like that, so I want to add just a tiny bit of curvature, and I'm gonna move this up so it's not 0 here, and we're gonna it's gonna be 1 at the bottom, and then 20% or 20% of that at the top. And we're gonna use this mult value to multiply anything we want. I'm gonna use it to multiply the angle. So the angle here is gonna be, let's say we use a 0.02 value. It's gonna be 1 here, and then as it gets higher, that value is going to be multiplied. So the angle is gonna get smaller, which means it will break faster. And I'm gonna put this in here. And I don't need to export it as a color, so we'll leave that. Let's call this mult creation. And I'm also going to do one more thing, and I'm not so sure if we need this, but I'm going to show you guys. Let's say we wanted to control this value, this mult, or the amplitude of anything in the constraints based on the feet of Kong. Okay, I'm going to move to a different frame. Let's say there. I'm going to create a point in that location. So add 1 point, and I'm going to move it here. So that's when that's where the feet is going to hit the first time, approximately. I'm going to connect this. I'm going to call this impact point. I'm going to connect it in the second input. And I'm going to create a ramp that is white where the impact is and fades off the further it gets, the further away from the impact point. We can use that as a multiplier to say we want this area to the glue constraint to break faster in that area. We can use this mask to do that. So let's import the point position. So import point attribute. The point number is 0 because there is only 1 point, and it is coming from the second input. And let's subtract the current position from the point position, and let's view that result. And we're going to compute the length of that because it's a vector. And let's fit range this and find the suitable range. So 0 to 100, that looks good. I'm going to set this to 1 to 0, and now we have a ramp based on that position. And if we have a different impact, for example, we can move it here. But it's just an overall multiplier, it's not something very, very precise. And let's change this to 40, maybe 60. And let's put another ramp as well for this guy. And it's going to be a float. So ramp impact. We need to change the name. Okay, and let's go up. So it's 1 there, but I don't want it to be like that. I want it to fade quickly and have this effect be more localized. So something like that. And we can use this as a multiplier. I think the range is too big, but you guys get the idea. I'm going to call this mult impact. For now, I'm not going to use it, but we'll do a test with it later. And actually, I don't want to change. Yeah, right now it's changing from 1 to 0. Here, I don't want that. I want to have it be 1 here. Sorry, have it be 0.5 here and then 1 everywhere else. So we don't change any of these guys, but we change it in this region to 0.5. So I'm going to put a fit range, and we're going to fit this to go between 1 and 0.5. Okay, so here nothing is going to change, and then in this area everything is going to get multiplied down by 0.5. So let's export this. And now we have mult impact and mult, and let's connect this guy back. Okay, and let's dive inside, and we're going to multiply the angle 0.05 by mult. So that it's gonna use the information that we made in the constraints to change the angle value based on that information. And we're gonna do the same for the breaking. So currently we have 20,000. We're gonna multiply that, and that's pretty much it. I'm gonna call this glue never. Glue soft. Something is happening to my keyboard. Okay, and let's reduce this. No, I want to keep the same value so you guys can see the difference. So we'll continue in the next video. I'm going to go up, and I'm going to cache this as v5_mult. Actually, let's go v8 because I made a couple. Let's call this v8 mult, and that's pretty much it. I'm gonna cache 160 frames, and we'll continue in the next video. Thank you guys for watching, and see you in a bit.